Edith Marshall had lived in the same brick house on Hawthorne Lane for over 40 years. It was a quiet street, the kind where you could still hear the wind rustling the leaves on warm afternoons and the rain tapping gently on the windows during storms. At 73, Edith had become something of a fixture in the neighborhood. Her presence constant, her routines predictable. Every morning, she sat by the window with her tea. Every evening, she lit the same lamp by the bookshelf her husband had built before he passed away. It had been 13 years since Leonard died. The grief had hollowed her out slowly, like water smoothing stone. She still wore her wedding band, still dusted off his chair by the fireplace. But most of all, she stayed silent about the years they'd shared, quietly preserving the memories in the soft corners of her home. That attic was one of those corners. She hadn't stepped foot there since 2012. The old wooden stairs creaked beneath her weight when she finally decided to open the hatch one golden morning in late spring. Something had changed inside her, a stirring she couldn't explain, like a whisper nudging her toward something she'd forgotten. She climbed slowly, her hands trembling slightly as they gripped the dusty railing. The scent of cedar and thyme met her at the top. Boxes, photo albums, a broken lamp, all familiar shapes cloaked in dust. She was about to turn back when she noticed the large trunk in the corner. It was locked, but the key was still in the drawer downstairs. When she opened it, there it was, a dress. Not just any dress. It was a shade of pale rose, soft silk, flowing fabric. It had once belonged to her sister Margaret, who had passed away before Edith ever married Leonard. Seeing it brought a sharp intake of breath, like the room itself had remembered something she tried to forget. Suddenly she was back in 1969. The day Margaret left for Paris. They had danced together in that very dress in the living room, laughing as the radio played a French waltz. Edith had admired her so much back then. Her courage, her charm, her fearlessness. And then Margaret was gone. Letters came for a while then stopped. No one ever found out what happened to her. For decades, Edith had buried that pain. But holding the dress in her hands, something shifted. She realized she had lived most of her life behind a curtain of caution. She had been the quiet sister, the careful one. And in the silence of her aging years, she had let that silence define her. That evening, Edith did something she hadn't done in years. She dressed herself, not in the rose silk, but in a soft sky blue blouse and a long skirt, and walked outside. She wandered through the neighborhood and ended up in the park where she and Leonard used to read poetry. She sat on the same bench and let the breeze tangle in her silver hair. The next day, she pulled out her old camera. She had once loved photography. It was how she saw the world, framed in gentle moments, found in shadows and smiles. She began photographing the smallest things. Dew on petals, shadows on her porch, sunlight on her wrinkled hands. Then came the letters. Edith began writing to her daughter Anna weekly. Not just updates, but real letters. She told stories she had never shared about Paris dreams, about fears she once had, and how those fears no longer held her. Anna responded with warmth, with longing, with a desire to visit soon. In time, Edith opened her house again. She hosted quiet tea afternoons with neighbors. She brought out old books and reread the ones she had once set aside for later. She began volunteering at the library on weekends, where children sat wide-eyed at the stories she read aloud. Her voice had been silent for years, and now it flowed like a river through pages and laughter. But perhaps the most remarkable change was inward. Edith no longer looked at herself in the mirror with only nostalgia or regret. She saw a woman who had been broken, yes, but rebuilt. A woman who had loved deeply and lost, but who still carried joy in her veins. The attic dress reminded her of a life not lived, but instead of mourning that, she used it to awaken the one still ahead. When the dress was displayed at the town's vintage fair, a soft pink swath of silk hanging gently from a mannequin, people asked its story. Edith simply smiled and said, "It belonged to someone I once loved. But now it belongs to memory." And in her heart, she knew that memory was not where life ends, it's where healing begins.